I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first thing is to approve the agenda. Does anyone have any questions, additions, corrections to the existing agenda?
Make a motion to approve.
Okay, I will second that. I got a motion by Sean Ryan, seconded by Chuck Nicolai to approve the agenda as presented. There's no other comments. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Okay, agenda is approved. Jim, are you going to introduce the first thing on the agenda?
Honorable Mayor and Council, tonight we have a Towards Zero Death presentation for you. Just an informational meeting about what Towards Zero Death is. We have 4 individuals here tonight. On your left, the male is Scott Edgeworth, Tara Helmsworth. Helmworth?
Just Helm.
Oh, Helmworth.
There you have it. Everyone's worth tonight, right?
Those 2 are directors for the metro area for Towards Zero Death. And then Annette Larson is the director for the southern part of the state. She'll be doing the presentation tonight. And then also Bill Hamas is the law enforcement liaison. He works with the departments as they program and develop schedules for Towards Zero Death.
Okay.
But I will let them take off with it.
All right, well, welcome.
Is it on? This one's red too. They might some computers today.
All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us come this evening. So we're just going to talk a little bit about Towards Zero Deaths. I'm not sure how much you know about TZD, and then kind of talk about what we're trying to accomplish in Scott County. So this is the vision of TZD. So we want to reduce the fatalities and serious injuries on our roadways to 0. And our mission, to move Minnesota towards 0 by using our EMS, engineering, and education and enforcement. So when TZD started, we really started with what we call the 4 E's. And so that was the E's that I talked about: enforcement, engineering, EMS, and education. But what Towards Zero Deaths is trying to do is we're trying to change our culture. And so in order to do that, we needed to include a 50, and that 50 is everyone. It includes anybody that has a desire and a passion to make sure that we're not having anybody lost on our roadways. It includes our elected officials as well. So that orange area that you see up on the slide there was before TZD started. In 2003, we reached 655 fatalities on our roads. And we said if we do nothing, that red line that you see going up, that's where we could potentially be with our fatalities. And so since TZD started, we've seen that 42% reduction in our fatals on our roads. So this is what our regions look like when we talk about our Towards Zero Deaths regional program directors. I have that orange colored area. The metro is that purple colored area. And so it's just kind of broken down. We have individuals that help in all of those regions to work with those safe roads coalitions to address what's happening in the local county. And then the law enforcement liaison, I'll let Bill talk a little bit here.
Yeah, there's 4 of us in the state. I happen to have the metro, as my 3 partners always tell, that little bitty area of the map right there, where they can get on the road and travel to a meeting, and they may travel a quarter way across the state, and it'll take them 2 hours, and I'll travel 10 miles, and it'll still take me 2 hours to get to where I'm going. But the way we divided up the metro is by the state patrol districts. So we have east and west state patrol districts, and this down here in Scott County, you're in the west patrol district. So you're kind of in with, Hempin, Anoka counties. I think that's it on this side, as I recall. And Carver County, of course. So that's how we divided the state up. So I'm responsible for about 89 law enforcement agencies here in the metro area. And what I do is I help them set up the enforcement projects, if they need literature, anything that I can help out with. I need a law enforcement agency. That's my role in all of this.
All right, so I talked a little bit about that we really wanted to change our traffic safety culture. And in order to do that, we need to change those values, those beliefs, the attitudes that individuals in our communities have. So now I want you guys to think back to years ago, before recycling was the cool thing to do. If I asked you years ago, do you recycle? The majority of you would say no. And now the majority of you probably do recycle. And so we know it takes approximately 10 years to change a culture, and so that's really where we are really turning our efforts to focus on getting people to change their habits and what they're doing when they get behind the wheel. So this just looks at some of the growth since Towards Zero Death started. So you can see that first area there is 2003, where we were at. And then the second line there talks about where we are currently. So seatbelt use was 82%, it jumped up to 92%. You can see the number of miles that were covered now by a cable median barrier and so on. So part of changing the culture, we didn't ask either one of these companies to put those messages out there. But the cement truck that you see up there with the Towards Zero Death logo, that's one way just to get our message out about the importance of TZD, build that brand. And then of course the Baker Casket Company and their message there as well. So, success factors, you can see them listed up there. One of the things when myself and the Metro coordinators, when we go into a county, we bring those best practices and lessons learned. So we know what's happening across the state, and so we can bring those tools and resources to the counties that we're working in to hopefully address what's happening locally and make a difference here on what's happening here in Scott County. So I know this slide is old, but I usually show this because when I tell people what I do for my job, they tell me we can never achieve zero. And I don't like to believe that. So the counties that are up here in 2015 did achieve zero fatalities. So I want you to focus on South Central and Southwest because that's the area that I used to cover. And you can see at the time in 2015, I had one county in each of those regions that had zero fatalities. And then this is 2016. So you can see we had a growth in both South Central and Southwest of counties that did achieve zero fatalities. And so what this really shows to me and represents to me is that one day, if we all come together and work towards zero deaths, we can make the state of Minnesota blue. No fatalities on our roads. So these are the goals that we have looking forward to 2020. So we want less than 300 fatalities on our roads and less than 850 serious injuries. So I'm not going to go through all of these slides that are coming up, but this is going to look at what the metro fatality and serious injuries that are happening across the metro. And then we're going to break it down into Scott County, and you can see where the fatalities are happening in Scott County as well. So this slide here looks at our intersection, our run off the road, and our head-on. So this is bringing in the engineering ease. So we look at what's happening across the metro area, where these run off the roads, where the intersection crashes, where the head-ons are happening, and what are some engineering fixes that we can do to prevent those crashes from occurring. So behavior, that's really what our Safe Roads groups focus on, is our behavior. So the impairment, speed, unbelted, and inattentive driving. And so you can see kind of how the fatal and serious injury crashes over the 5 years of time, what percentage those are broken down by those behaviors. And then we also look at younger drivers, older drivers, and then unlicensed drivers. So you can kind of see in the metro over those same 5 years what percentage of fatal and serious injury crashes are happening in those groups. And then modes of transportation. So commercial motor vehicle, is it motorcycle, is it pedestrian, is it bicyclist? So you can see in the metro, again, over those 5 years, where the percentage of fatals and serious injury crashes, what they look like. So now this is broken down by the specific behaviors. It's also broken down by lane departure intersection, motorcycle and pedestrians, and then by all of the counties in the metro area. So you can see Scott County up there, the number of fatals, the number of serious injuries, and then it's also broken down by the specific behaviors that we talked about. And then we're going to break it down one more step. And so this is looking at the specific cities and the townships within Scott County. So you can see the number of crashes, the fatal and serious injury crashes that have occurred. So these are an ongoing problem. They're nothing new. They're something that we've been working on since TZD started, and probably before that as well. Probably the newest one up there, or two newer ones up there, were probably the drowsy driving and drums. But again, they continue to be a persistent challenge for us to address what's happening on our roadways. So this slide just talks about if fatalities had stayed the same and if we had done nothing, we would have lost over 3,000 lives. Just to kind of help put it into perspective of the number of lives saved. So, as of to date, this is where we're at. We've already lost 309 people on our roadways as compared to 316. Now, oftentimes when I talk with people about these numbers, it doesn't mean too much to you unless you knew somebody in that 309. And it does. It does have an impact on you. So, if fatalities stay as they are now, as of the 2018 numbers of 318 lives lost on our roadways, 762 more people won't be here. 762 more people that won't be here to celebrate Christmas, Thanksgiving, special events, and in families. And so, our goal for 2020 is 300, but that's still too many. So, what Scott County, what we're really trying to do, after our last couple of meetings, we talked about wanting to go out and do some local government presentations to talk to city councils about the importance of Towards Zero Deaths in hopes to build our coalition. And so really, we're hoping that there would be a member within the city council or a member from the area that would want to be involved with our efforts to help us address what's happening here locally. So I did put our next meeting, and I believe it's 1 o'clock. And from that meeting, what we're hoping to do is really build our action plan of how are we going to move forward to address what's happening in Scott County. How can we not lose one more life on our roadways because of efforts that this group is going to work towards and hopefully stop fatalities.
And I believe that meeting is going to be held at the Public Safety Training Center, just up Highway 169 a little bit. What I want to say to you is this: we need your help. We're always looking for people to assist us. Everybody has to get involved if we're going to reach that zero number. I've been asked many times, is zero a reality? And if it's not a reality, what are we going to accept? Is 100 okay? Is 50 okay? And who are those 50 if we decide that's how many people we're going to kill every year in our state? If we killed 381 people, or they were shot in Minnesota every year, that would be unacceptable. So why do we accept this? I'm a retired police officer, and I can tell you in all the fatal crashes I've been to in my career, that is an extremely violent way for one to lose their life. So we have to bring this to an end. We have to stop this from happening on our roadways, and almost every one of these have been preventable. So that's what we're going to do tonight, is ask for some help. Go. It's okay.
So our ultimate goal is, again, that zero fatalities. And so, as Bill indicated, we are hoping that somebody from the council would be willing to help serve as that representative for your city, to bring your voice forward and help us achieve zero for Scott County. So do you guys have any questions for us?
Well, I've died on them roads before, so I applaud your efforts, and if you guys want to point me out.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much for letting us be here tonight. We really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll see some of you soon in the future.
Yes.
And
So, but this meeting is, if we have one or two representatives just show up in the meeting, is it just is it an invite or informal, or how would you like to proceed?
So I have our contact information up there, so probably the best person to probably reach out to, because I will eventually be stepping away from Scott County and going back to just my South Central region. Bill would probably be your best bet to reach out and get connected to the invite to the meeting. The meetings are not a formal meeting, it's more come to the table and sit and discuss what's happening and our plans for moving forward with the different, whether it be impaired education, seatbelt education, distracted driving, and whatnot. So,
and And I could say, I'm sure the chief has my phone number if you need it, and he'd be more than willing to give it to you.
So Jim, what involvement has this, our police force been involved in this?
We've been involved in Towards Zero Death, and prior to that, the Safe and Sober program for years, where we take part in the actual enforcement waves of distracted driving, seat belts, speed, and DWI enforcement.
Okay.
And I can honestly speak a little bit about that and tell you that they really have done a very good job down here. And we're very grateful to have them in the program. But you know, it takes more than just a chief. I mean, obviously, he has to have your blessing to participate in this program as well, I'm guessing. So, you know, that this is all of us coming to the table and working hard to resolve a huge problem that we're having. But yes, the new Prague Police Department has done a very good job down here. So thank you.
Well, I think the other thing to think about too is enforcement. They're very active. They're out there. They're helping us drive that number towards zero. But you all probably know somebody that doesn't put their seatbelt on. You might know somebody that might pick up that phone and make a phone call. You might know somebody that might have made the decision to drive impaired. And we all have a voice. We can all use that voice to encourage people to not do those behaviors. And that's really what that extra E, that fifth E, is helping us to do that education piece.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike, are you going to take item 2?
Yeah, Jeremy's having to work overtime, so he's not able to be here tonight, but what you have for his request is being able to fill another vacancy that we have on the Prague Fire Department, that with the recent retirement of Steve Kartak, they had one opening. They went back to their list and they still had individuals remain on that list, and so he's recommending the hiring of Brian Javis to fill the vacancy. Everything has been completed as far as all the background hiring requirements. And so our recommendation is the appointment of Mr. Javis as a member of the fire department effective November 5 tomorrow.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, now I guess I'll make a motion to approve hiring of Brian Javis.
I'll second.
Fill that position. I got a second by Maggie Bass. There's no other comments. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Okay. We're very fortunate that we have people who want to fill those needs, so it's good to see. Ken, I assume you're going to take the next one.
Will. All right, next item is a conditional use permit request from Minnesota Auto Depot. Specifically, they're looking at renting a space at Portofino and East Main. It's kind of a back north part of the Napa Auto Parts building. There's a small suite on the north side of that building. It's about 130 square feet that they're looking to rent. It's been vacant since an electrical contractor had been in there, and it's been a couple of years. So looking to operate in that small area just to do paperwork, and they're not really a destination where you see the cars and necessarily stop in to talk to them. You're really by appointment and that type of thing. So they just need for their license for their auto dealership to have a physical commercial location, and this will suit that purpose. In addition to the office space, the property owner of the Napa building is allowing them to utilize 5 parking spaces in the lot between the highway and the building for display of up to 5 vehicles. And being in the B2 Community Commercial Zoning District, motor vehicle sales is a conditional use, and that's why we review that at the Planning Commission. A little more background for you. So we did have a public hearing at the Planning Commission meeting on October 23rd. We did have comments received that were from building owner Tom Shimoda of B&T Investments. His main concern was regarding a condition that we had in the staff report and ultimately had a lot of discussion on at the meeting, was about striping the main parking lot out front. If you've been out there, you'll see that the Gerald Brothers portion of the lot is striped. The portion in front of Napa has not been striped. That is a code requirement to be striped for their minimum amount of parking. Their rationale for not striping those is that they have large truck traffic circulate through the site and park and go into the building. And Planning Commission's discussion on that was ultimately that there's plenty of room to circulate around the building. I'll show you a map in a minute here of how that can be accommodated with striping the minimum parking spaces right in front of the building, and then also striping the 5 display spaces out in front closest to the highway. So here's kind of the drawing. You can see there's actually a property line between the Gerald Brothers portion of the building here and then the Napa portion. The little office is this little space right back here where he's looking to operate. So they can actually get their minimum parking spaces in just by striping the front row of parking in front of their building here. Their concern was that big vehicles come in, kind of loop around the back of the building, and then through, and he was concerned that vehicles wouldn't be able to make it through, but there's plenty of room, even striping on both sides here. So that was ultimately the recommendation from the Planning Commission to stripe these ones in the front, stripe the 5 out in the corner of the lot, and that should be required to be done by July 1, 2020. We're obviously in a time period of weather prohibiting doing the striping now, but have that in place by July 1. And the property owners seem to be in agreement with that at the meeting as well. Here's some photos of the inside of the office. It's not a big office, you know, he just needs that office to do the paperwork, and very minimal amount of foot traffic. There's some gravel parking spaces off the north. We talked at the Planning Commission that if this was a new parking lot, that would have to be paved. We did not see any reason to add these areas being paved due to the minimal amount of traffic, and mostly because of the large truck traffic. You see kind of the day I was out there, it was very wet. The large vehicle traffic causes ruts, and paving that would not serve its purpose very well on that north side of the lot. It's not visible from public right of way. So we recommended to keep that as it is existing today. A couple more photos here. And this is where the large trucks kind of circulate through that backside of the lot and then go around to the front of the building and to make deliveries for Napa and Gerald Brothers. So a lot of traffic, heavy trucks, just don't want to pave that area. Some more photos. The area on the map that were for the 5 display vehicles is kind of this corner of the lot here. And then finally, just stripe these spots up front. None of them are striped right now, so people kind of park where they seem to be able to fit. So that's what the recommendation was that came out of the meeting. So staff and the Planning Commission did ultimately recommend approval of the conditional use permit with the findings and conditions in the resolution that vary again slightly from what was in the staff report. So flip to the resolution for the final findings and conditions that were recommended. And I think with that, I'll leave this map up for the site plan on the overhead and turn it over to the council.
Okay.
Ken, is there going to be any signage at all?
They do plan to put signage up, and one of the things that they were not able to allow by our ordinances, and this in the staff report, they wanted to just put a freestanding signage for the auto sales. Per our ordinance, we only allow 1 freestanding site per sign, or sign per site, and he could attach that to the pole sign that they have on the building, and he didn't indicate if he was planning to do that or not. Again, it's mostly just the office that they needed for the commercial license. So I don't know that he will, but if he does, he would have to get a sign permit to do that.
So he's not actually going to display a large inventory of vehicles? It's just
Up to
5,
5, yeah. It may not even be that at most times.
Okay.
And one thing that the owner noted that he was concerned that the vehicles could get stale sitting out there, and he had mentioned that he wants to make sure that if they're sitting there, that they're moved around, so it doesn't look like it's just a parking lot for vehicles that never get turned over.
Okay.
Did you say, Ken, that was a requirement, striping was a requirement for code?
Yes, per the zoning ordinance, parking lots that are paved need to be striped with the minimum parking lot stall of 9 foot by 20 foot, and they had not met that previously. They had repaved the lot, I think, in the past 15, 16 months roughly.
I support the recommendation, but then the fact that they're not striping all of it, is that a variance requirement?
No, they wouldn't have to, they're striping the minimum amount that they're required to per the code. Yep. It just happens to be that their lot's bigger than they need to have.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, I guess I'll look for a motion to
So moved.
conditional use. Got a motion by Rick Seiler, second by Sean Ryan. If there's no other comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Now, does that go into effect immediately, Ken? Or is there has to be
Other than the couple of other conditions on there, they had to put some signage on the back door of the building, which they actually did. So they're pretty much ready to go.
Okay.
As soon as he's ready to go in there. If you're ready for the next one, move on.
Yes, please, thank you.
Next item from the Planning Commission meeting on the 23rd of October is a preliminary and final plat review of Tupy Acres Second Edition. And this is applied for by David Tupy. To give you a little background, Mr. Tupy applied for the preliminary and final plat of Tupy Acres Second Edition. It's one lot, one outlot on 41.24 acres. This may seem familiar to the council. It was to the Planning Commission. We had Tupy Acres First Edition that was reviewed and approved by the council in 2018. And specifically, that was another rural lot within our 2-mile extraterritorial subdivision ordinance review area. And the reason we review plats out in this area is to make sure there's no negative effects on the growth pattern for the city as it pertains to our comprehensive plan. So this was a replat of a portion of an outlot that was created in that development. And I do want to note the Sewer County still retains zoning and permitting authority in that area. We have the subdivision review authority in that area. The plat in this particular case was to take an existing lot with his home site on it and increase that to 5 acres in size so that he could have full ability to pull building permits and obtain building permits for some outbuildings that were on basically just south of his main property that were on the outlot that he now wants to include within his home lot. And the reason this couldn't be handled as an administrative lot split or lot line adjustment is that it included an outlot, and to get out of the outlot status, it has to be platted and put into a lot block format. So here's kind of a zoomed in, actually let me go to the previous slide, it kind of jumped over that a little bit. And it's not going to let me show you. Close that here. So the over 40 acres area, majority of it obviously is this former outlot area that is agricultural in nature. And you can see the outbuildings just south of the home, and we'll go back to the slide here. You can see the outbuildings that he needed to include to create a 5-acre lot per Sewer County planning and zoning in order to be eligible to obtain building permits to add on or add more buildings in this area. So basically just adding his home with some additional land there to get the 5-acre lot. That's really the gist of what he's trying to accomplish here. Again, the Planning Commission did a review on October 23rd. We had a public hearing. We didn't have any public comment received. Mr. Tupy was there. Did not offer any additional comment. Again, here's just the actual preliminary plat drawing with the large area. You can see the outlot from that 2 acres first edition here for the majority of the land. They're just basically splitting off a portion to create a new lot 1, block 1 of 2 acres second. And again, you can see that with the outbuildings within that new lot. And they actually had to make it a little bigger than they probably needed to, but had to get to the 5-acre minimum for the Sewer County to be eligible to get those permits for those outbuildings. So that is a lot being created, and the remainder will be in an outlot. Just another copy of the plat there. And then a couple of photos. Again, just looking from the street, you can't hardly see the outbuildings behind there, but they are there. So outwardly, really not much of a change for a visual from the County Road 29 or anything. And a couple other screenshots, you can see the current property line dividing the two. So with that, I can turn it back over to the council.
Okay. Anyone have any questions?
Just want to verify, I heard what you said, the new lot is 5 acres
5 acres, correct.
and the outlot is 35.
Yeah, it'd be the remainder of the total area being platted, which was,
Give or take.
yeah, give or take, exactly.
So the Leicester County ordinance did not allow a building permit on 40-acre site.
I don't know, David, you could probably comment more specifically on that. I didn't get into the conversations on that in particular, but.
Because the building were on an outlot,
Oh, and then the outlot, they're not eligible for a building permit. That's what it was.
even they don't even grandfather the buildings that are there. So if a storm would come, I would not be able to rebuild or get any kind of permit to do whatever, add or, repair, because it's on an outlot. So it needs to be on a lot in order to get a building permit.
Good to know for the future, I guess.
Yeah, what is it zoned as right now?
Agricultural.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I guess I'll look for a motion to approve the resolution approving the preliminary and final plat of 2 acres. Second edition?
I'll second.
I have a motion by Sean Ryan, seconded by Maggie Bass. If there's no other comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0.
Ken, I just had more of an administrative question for the future. How does one enforce the park dedication fees in the future on these plats that are being
Yep, so
within the subdivision?
every time we have a development that is done, we have title work, and they would pull that from the record of the recorded resolution that notes that as a title condition, and that's how that would get picked up.
And what's the enforcement mechanism?
All the staff at the time would have to be on top of their game to catch that in the title commitment note that that was a previous deferral on that particular item, whatever it might be, and make sure that it's collected.
So it is part of the developer's agreement?
There's no developer's agreement on these because we don't have actually any development involving the city, but it will show up as a recorded resolution, and that was one of the conditions for the plat approval. So the title company will note that at the time it was previously platted, that those were the conditions, and those will need to be met. Obviously, in this case, it says when it's brought into the city and further developed. So we get, it end up on that title commitment, that's what we pick it up. Yeah, if not for that resolution, ooh, that'd be tough to keep track of that.
Okay. Next on the agenda, I think based on our meeting, was it a month ago, maybe?
No, the 21st,
21st?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, I guess time flies when you're having fun. The council directed that we would move forward with a task force to look at the rental situation in the city of New Prague, and it looks like you are coming up with a blueprint and looking for approval.
Right, so this is just staff's recommendation. Nobody was in the council at the time when we initially had a task force for the rental registration program, but that had 9 members. These were appointed by the council. And then there was also, in addition, those 9 staff that supported that task force. What we're recommending this time would be to have 7 members and have 1 of those be a city council member, 2 to be landlords. You can solicit online on our website and in the paper if you wanted to. 2 to be tenants, again, soliciting online or in the newspaper. And then finally, 2 at-large community members. I don't know how you would want to approach actually soliciting those. We don't necessarily have an application, but maybe a letter of interest. We've heard from some that were at the meeting last time we talked about this, if they're interested. I've actually had a couple of phone calls, but I think a letter might be good in case we get 20 people that want to be on the task force. I don't know that we'll get that, but we certainly could. And then we would just have staff support that task force with obviously providing the data we've looked at now. And I think the main thing is just to provide the data and have them discuss between the different interests here what they might see as being the issues to be solved. And we've talked about a number of those being the conditions of some rental units. We know that some are probably in very good shape, and see if there's a good middle ground that can meet everybody's need and provide a kind of I guess an advocacy for tenants that maybe don't feel that they can speak out when they need to. And I don't want to have any preconceived notion of where this could lead, but I think that's kind of the purpose of this, to do a little more digging and bring that information back to the council, rather than spend hours here doing that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I've talked to a couple of different property owners, landlords, and there's two of them that are interested that I'd really like to have show up and be on the focus group. So either we're going to recommend people, or we're going to get letters of interest, or I'm not sure how that is going to go. But I found the two most reasonable people that I can find is on landlords,
Okay.
Joe and that Ron guy. So.
I think what we need to do
They were real, they're receptive to there being a system in place, but what they would like is, well, they better work it all out in focus group.
Right.
But there is two guys that are interested for sure, and I don't know if you want to pick them, or if we want to pick them people out, or if we want to send out a letter of interest, or what you want to do with it.
I think we should advertise and see how many people we get involved and that want to be involved in the process, and then from there we can, as a council, make a determination who will consist of this group. So.
And I'm just like Bruce said, it's perfect. There's a difference between a focus group that's functional and dysfunctional, and that's my biggest fear is it's going to become dysfunctional. So I don't, I would really like to have people on it that want to sit down and work things out. You know what I mean? Instead of all this hard-hitting, hard preaching that we've had so far. Take it from there.
Yeah, no, I think we're on agreement. We definitely want a group that's going to come up with a resolution that's good for both the landlords and the tenants and the city. So that's the ultimate goal. So I guess, Ken, unless there's any other questions, I think we should probably go ahead and publish.
Okay.
Wanting to set up this task force to look at this issue and see how many people we get interested, and then from there we can take a look at that and make a decision who we'd like to serve on this.
And Joe, you make sure you get your letter of interest in.
I will do that, thank you.
Okay.
I think that one of the challenges we have, depending on taking a look at the time frame here, is that obviously we're going to miss out on being able to get any kind of ad in the newspaper yet this week, because that timeline is gone. So the earliest that we can get something posted is not till next week. So you're probably going to have to give us about the next 3 weeks to be able to have time to put this on the website and get it advertised.
I'd even go as far as saying at the first of the year started, when the holidays and everything are over, that you want to do.
Well, but if we want to get names here in November, and then you can make the selection in December with starting at the first of the year.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we're flexible on the time frame. I don't think we're looking at, hey, it has to be set up next week or anything. I think we're looking, hey, let's...
Yeah, no deadline, we just want
Right, let's get it going,
discussion.
and yeah, the ultimate goal is if we could get a group selected by the end of the year, and then they can start working in the first quarter and go from there. So, awesome. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Does anyone have any questions, issues on anything in the consent agenda?
I move to accept the consent agenda.
Okay, you got a motion by Sean to accept the items in the consent agenda.
Second.
You got a second by Rick.
My knee.
I was just looking at the note, I had one note, but it's not really, so I got a motion by Sean, second by Rick, to accept everything in the as consent agenda. There's no other questions, comments? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposition? All right. Miscellaneous. Select, did you come here just to visit?
No, actually, I came to propose that maybe Sunday liquor, 34504, sub 3 would be, back about 10 years ago, back when, I think it was when Pat was alive in Fishdale, we petitioned the council if we could lose the noon city ordinance on liquor serving to the 10 o'clock state. So the ordinance was amended by the city, which it probably should have been dissolved because then state law went to 8 o'clock for Sunday on sale with food. So I would just offer that somewhere we could get that maybe in motion again to drop the 10 o'clock to 8 o'clock to follow the state guidelines for on sale Sunday, or dissolve it, or whatever works. But you know, I do lose significant business to the outskirts where it's county governed, like you know, Brewster's, St. Pat's, Union Hill, because those that want a cocktail when they have their breakfast. So yeah, with the hype of the Sunday on sale, 8 o'clock, I figured it'd be worth a shot to come before the city council and maybe see if we can go to, I should say off sale, see if we can go back to on sale 8 o'clock to follow the state guidelines.
I think we were talking beforehand that I think when we changed it to 10, that's what the state statute
Yeah.
was. And then the state statute changed. I guess we could revisit that. I know a lot of cities, and I think Montgomery's one, that I think their ordinance state that it just follows state statute. And, you know, maybe that'd be something that as a council we could look at. That way if the state decides to change it and go back up to 11 o'clock, you know, for whatever reason,
Yeah.
we don't have to keep changing our ordinance.
Right.
So, Mike, why don't we put that on? Something that maybe we can shoot for, you know, maybe early next year. I know we got a lot of things going on with budgets and all that other fun stuff right now, but let's address that maybe in one of the first meetings in January. What would be the steps that we would need to do to address that?
Basically, it would be just a modification of the ordinance by the city attorney and 2 readings.
Okay. That's not in anything in the charter?
No.
Okay, that's just a regular ordinance.
Just ordinance.
Okay.
So, you know, it could be prepared such that if you wanted to, if you had direction tonight, is that could instruct the city attorney's office to prepare that such that if you wanted to, you could look at introducing that at the first meeting in December, and then consider adopting at the second meeting with publication, where you could hit the first of the year.
Okay. Well, I just wanted, is that fine with the council?
Yeah, it's fine with me, yeah.
Okay.
And I think the sooner the better, especially the holiday season, and I don't know, we're gonna be able to meet your need for the
That's okay.
Thanksgiving,
I'm
Christmas.
more worried about next year's road construction. I don't want to lose the opportunity to service the county or the city the best I can.
Okay.
You know, I don't want to lose any customers and have that be one of the hindrances. So I appreciate it, thank you.
Okay, good. Anyone else have any comments? Yeah.
I just wanted to add one comment in light of some emails on the rental registration that we talked about a couple weeks ago. That you're right, Chuck, it seems like a while ago already. But in light of that, it looks like some of the complaints, there was only really one bona fide complaint in that 6 months from a renter, and the rest of them were in respect to long grass or garbage cans or something like that, where I believe city staff sent out letters and then those issues were corrected.
Did you give us some input on that too, Ken?
It's actually on the list, there are actually 3. I don't know where you're getting the 1 from, but
The other 2, unless those 2 that were blacked out, Ken.
it was 2 that blacked out, and there's 1 that was an anonymous one. That was issues with a particular unit. Yeah, that was 3.
Okay. So 3 in a 6 month period. So far less than the number that we originally thought, so.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Yes?
My name is Gary White, I live on 9th Street. And Mr. Mayor, I read your comments that were in the last utility bill, and I was very concerned about what you had in there for a proposed maximum increase. Now, I understand that it could definitely be less than that, but it can't be more. However, when I look at, I've lived in New Prague now 9 years, I look at what's happened in the city in the last 9 years. The city continues to grow. There's more households today than there was 9 years ago, that's for sure. And many of the costs the city has are incremental. You know, whether you go from 7,800 people to 8,000 people, your costs don't double or triple for those 200 people. So I'm really concerned about what you're spending and getting control of that. My city portion of my property taxes last year were $1,200, or this year $1,293. Now, I don't know how many houses were built in 2018. Maybe Ken can answer that. How many building permits for new homes?
2018 is 20.
Roughly?
22.
Okay, and how many in 2019?
We got about the same one.
Okay, so there's another $40,000, and you haven't had to do anything, right? So there's another $40,000 in tax income. So I'm really concerned why the taxes would even have, why you'd even consider the 7-8% number when it should be, I would think, neutral or very small like we've had in the past. So,
Well, that's something obviously we're still in the process.
Right, I understand
We've had
that.
2 workshops and we have another one next Wednesday. 13th. So we do look at the departments. Now, you may think just because you had houses, you don't have to do anything, but obviously you have to maintain those streets.
Oh, absolutely. I
And things like that,
understand.
yes. I mean, there is some
I understand
additional
we
cost.
need police coverage, and
Right.
that they get busier because there's more people, but there's also, it costs no more to put electricity to my house today than it did 9 years ago, right?
Well, I wouldn't, I don't know if I would agree with that statement.
And that's a whole other subject, because I look at, again, looking at that, my utility bill, $46 or 23% of my utility bill was for service charges. And it's not that I pay my bill out late, that's for even paying it on time. It's $11 on electricity, $14 on water, $10.52 on sewer, just service charges. So the city's charging me $46 just to have my house sitting there, and I'm still paying taxes. So you're collecting that from every other house in town.
Right.
So I understand, but you're charging service charges to keep the service flowing, right?
No, I understand. You're more than welcome. Like I said, probably the best thing is obviously the truth in taxation meeting that we scheduled for what, December 2nd? Is when we actually kind of go through our final budget. I would suggest that you would come to that. And,
I'll be there.
And you can have some questions. You can kind of see what we look at as a council. Obviously, a lot of the portion is, you have labor increases and things like that, and staffing and deals like that to handle a growing city and things like that. But we kind of go through all that on that truth in taxation. And that is kind of like the last part before we actually approve the budget, which didn't then happen the final meeting in December. So right now there isn't, nothing has been etched in stone, and that's part of the process every year we go through. So I would definitely have, invite you to come and kind of hear, and you'll be more than welcome to ask some questions then.
Okay.
Awesome.
I'll be there, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good to see you there. There's been several of us that have made comments, and the county is 120% tax increase over the last 10-year period or something like that. Did we ever get anybody from the county in here to explain that portion of it?
No, not part of our truth in taxation. We're really responsible only for the New Prague part. Obviously, the county is involved in the assessed part of it. But that's, a lot of it is based on market value, market sales in comparable areas, and then the state statute says that the assessed value has to be within 95 to 105% of the comparable sales in that area. So a lot of stuff is dictated by state statute in regarding the assessed values, but obviously, we do look at our budgets with our department heads, and we feel that, we've been very fortunate the last few years. In the last 10 years, I think, what was it, 1.87 cents or percent? I think we've been very fiscally responsible. I consider that we'll be very similar, take the similar attitude going forward, because, everyone up here pays taxes just as well as.
And again, like I said, in the past, it's been minimal,
Yeah.
almost a non-event.
Mhm.
But when I look at that, and plus I retired in August, so I have a lot more free time.
Well, all right, now we got a future council member coming.
One other thing I did happen to notice, because I went to Beacon and I was looking at properties, and then I started looking at some of the commercial properties. In the last 2 years, the commercial properties, their taxes have gone down, their property taxes have gone down, and every commercial property I looked at in LeSueur County, around along the highway area. And every residence I looked at went up. That's kind of concerning.
That I can't comment on that.
Some of Scott County, mine went up.
Yeah.
I
You
just
moved
want to
across the
comment
street.
here. Just comment, I'm no expert on the taxes either, but it is a very complicated calculation, and just adding 40 houses or number of houses doesn't necessarily mean everyone's going to pay $40,000. The tax capacity is what it's all based on. We can have a significant increase in what we levied the previous year and still have the tax rate go down. So it's really, in my mind, I look more at tax rate, and I think your comment was talking about the increase from the previous year.
Right.
But just, my comment is just so we try to get on the same page about what we're talking about, because it's a very confusing calculation that we're dealing with here. And commercial properties are levied in a different way than residential, so there's
But I wouldn't
different.
think they'd go down.
Well, they're much more dependent upon income flow than residential, which is more market value. When you look at appraised values for commercial property, there's a different calculation that appraisers go through. And that's where we get into the assessor's discussion about how that's looked at. But you'll notice in, like 3 years ago, commercial property had a decrease in tax capacity for our town compared to other years. So there's a difference in that. You can kind of, it's one of the things we're looking at is how that's changed over the years. From an EDA's perspective, that's what we've been trying to work on, is trying to develop more industrial and commercial to try to keep up with the pace of residential growth, because we've had so much more residential growth than commercial valuation and grade. So we're trying to keep that up to keep the balance in place. So, but it's a very complicated
Yes.
thing.
Okay, appreciate your comments. Hope to see you on the 2nd. Okay, anyone else? Mitch, you're good? You've been kind of quiet lately. Okay. Patrick?
I'm fine.
James?
I'm good, thanks.
Ken? Michael?
Just budget workshop on the 13th at 5:30.
Okay. And that's open to the public, right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Because I did mention that in the radio show. Yeah, they are. I'm pretty sure they were.
All public meetings are open.
I know. Barb?
No,
Maggie?
no, I don't have anything.
Johnny? Nope. Rick?
Yep.
Well, don't just say yep and just move it.
Wasn't there something in the agenda about filling positions, that we were gonna start filling the positions that we're opening up on the committees?
You're talking about the boards and
I
commissions?
don't have it in front of me. Was that just over the fire department, or was that?
No, that was just the fireman, we were filling a position. The
Right.
boards and commissions their service starts June 1st.
Oh, okay.
So we don't look at those probably till March or April to see what vacancies are available.
Mhm.
And then to put those out for ad to fill those positions. But we changed that a few years ago because we used to do it January 1st, but we felt it wasn't real fair when we had inbound councils coming in and that sort of thing. So,
And board and commission terms are June 1 to May 31st.
right. So those we won't, okay. Until,
Coco, you hear that? Did you hear that?
Oh, yeah.
I was just going over when they're gonna open meetings up.
Oh, wow, thank you.
All right, and so we're looking at probably February
No, it'll probably be March is when we'll start. We'll see what openings are, and then we'll publish them probably in April.
Yeah, we've got a normal timeline that we go through all of that every year. It's pretty consistent.
So April, and then we do the interviews in May and make the recommendation in the last meeting in May, and then they take seats in the first meeting of those boards and commissions in June.
Now, Ken, I think we have 2 vacancies on the park board.
We do, yes.
So that would be something, if you are interested. We had one person that moved outside of New Prague and another person, I can't remember what was the situation, that they left the park board. So we have 2 vacancies, and we could try to appoint.
To fill a remaining
those.
term, yeah.
Yep.
So that's one board. I don't think any of the other boards or commissions that I'm aware of have any vacancies.
I know.
Yeah, I don't think so. So
Get together with Mike and he'll be able to give you an idea of what's going on with it.
Where's the mic?
Mark, the boss man over
Okay, thank you.
okay, anything else, Rick?
Ken, there was something for you on that, I'm working on some other things with you too. My brain is mush tonight. You know what, just skip that, that's good.
Okay. Bruce?
Our discussion with the 37 a few meetings ago just made me think again. Do we publish, I thought we did a good job communicating that ahead of time. Do we publish the CIP road projects, like the schedule of that, or at least what we're thinking well in advance? Like, is that something we put in our newsletter already for the 2021 or 2022 areas of town that we might be working on?
Yeah, I don't know if we officially publish those until, we approve them going forward.
Until it's formal action?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, then obviously, then we go through the same series of steps where we have the initial meeting, everyone gets a letter, the initial meeting, and then the time.
So this was almost a year in advance from this last one. Is that typical when we start the process?
Which one, the 2020?
The one we just finished this year, 2000.
Yeah.
7th Street.
It started about a year ago.
Well, that one was a little bit strange because it really wasn't on our CIP list, but it was proposed to be a county road and turn back to the city. And so we tried to coordinate that with what we had planned for our 2019 CIP overlay project. So that was one that was a little bit more abnormal and wasn't on essentially our 10-year street CIP list until the county came forward and wanting us to look at that as a turn back. Originally, the county was going to handle it, but the more discussion we got into, we tried to determine who could do a better job with doing an urban reconstruct like we did, whether that was best left in the county's hands or ours, and then the turn back, and then the offer to have SEH be the engineer of record under a contract to the county, working with us. And so that was a little bit abnormal. But I think we've got on the website, don't hold me to it, but I think we've got it's the list of our street CIP projects that we have is posted on the website.
I know there's just some disappointment with some people about the project, but overall I do feel the communication and the effort that the state board is pretty good. And I think just to continue that kind of proactive, and if we're publishing in that, then people in the community kind of will get an idea of what we're talking about. So to try to avoid as much as possible any surprises for people if they're buying or selling their home and whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that schedule is, like Ken said, is out there, showing that what projects and what year.
Okay.
I remember.
Okay.
I remember the other thing on my list.
You said you were done.
I'm not done.
Done?
Oh, okay. This was concerning that as they start preparing for 2020, there was a question from a couple of businesses, are you going to put, signs that say smoke shop back here, or, there's a, you see what I mean?
Yeah, the committee that the chamber is forming, and then, I forget the name of that committee, what they're calling it. They're working on that with the funds, some of the funds the EDA is putting forward with, to do exactly that, Rick, to help guide people where they need to go, if it's a back door or, what it might be. So,
That's probably more of a marketing, social media arrangement that we're going to be working on with the chamber. As far as the signage, yes, we will be working with MnDOT to have appropriate signage and wayfinding during the construction project.
That first meeting is on Wednesday, I think, with that committee.
This one?
District,
That's at steerage for.
2019, or
2020.
2000. The marketing, I think, I'm not sure if we've actually titled it's the first meeting of this committee.
Right.
I was thinking about that, commerce would probably be a good idea to hit up with that one too.
I'm sorry?
Commerce would probably be up into my next question, whether I should contact them, but like you just said, they're working on it, so.
Well, as part of our MnDOT project and the city leading this project is that we will be working to, like I said, have wayfinding and signage with Warren construction signs and other things during the course of the project. The EDA, the chamber one, is trying to put together kind of a marketing, social media to basically let the public know is that New Prague is still open for business and how you can get around and trying to advertise and market the community that way. So there will be a number of different fronts that we'll work on. MnDOT will also, excuse me, MnDOT will also have their own advertising on their statewide construction sites and that, letting people know how they're going to be able to maneuver and get around during the course of that construction. So there will be a number of different fronts being worked on to try to ensure that that public education and outreach on access will work during the construction.
Thank you.
Okay. Now you're really done?
No, there's actually one more, but I can't, I'm fishing for it, but I can't find it.
Okay. Anything else, Bruce? Mike, I just have a couple things. Facility study, where does that sit for this?
Probably ready to go the first of the year.
Okay. And then athletic field study, I know you were gonna kind of, now that Brett took over as the president of the soccer association, I know that there was a change up
We
front.
haven't met that there appears to be a willingness for them to throw some money in, but I've not had a chance to meet Brent's schedule with his banking world. We have not had a chance, but there is an offer to participate in. So
And the school's already on board.
the school's on board for that, and again, that one I'm hoping that we can try to have both of those ready to go by the first of the year.
Okay, let's shoot for that. Okay, I don't have anything else. Anyone have any other questions, comments? Guess I'll make a motion to adjourn. Second by Sean Ryan. All in favor of adjournment, say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Okay, we're out of here. Thank you everyone for coming.